This is John with Beyond Belief Sobriety. We are a podcast and community for people who are seeking or who have found a secular path to recovery from addictions of all kinds. If you're new to our YouTube channel, please take a look around. This is a podcast that's been going on for 7 years now, and we explore topics of interest to people who want recovery, but without the higher power and God and all the religious baggage that goes with it. So anyway, we've got our podcast episodes out there, and there are some audio stories and all kinds of things that you might want to listen to. So we have guests, and today I have a guest. His name is Mark Knobloch. He's been on here before. It's been a while. It's been a few years. Early on in the podcast, I had him on, and we do live streams every Saturday. And I think it was last Saturday or maybe the Saturday before. Somebody mentioned Soberlink. And Soberlink happens to sponsor our podcast. On all of the audio podcasts, I do a little ad for Soberlink, and they pay us. And Soberlink is a monitoring system. It's like a breathalyzer, very high tech. And what it does is it helps people monitor their sobriety and prove to loved ones and employers and others that they are sober. And the results go directly to the person. And there's a whole program behind it. And anyway, the Soberlink people have been great, but during that live stream, Mark mentioned that he works with people who use Soberlink. Isn't that cool? I have never yet talked to anybody who's had that experience. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to catch up with Mark to see what's happened with him since our last conversation, and to learn more about what he knows about Soberlink. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring him on out right now, and here he is. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks, and it's great to be here. And thank you for all you do here. I quite frankly, I don't know how you find the time to do as much as you do with this podcast, and it helps a lot of people. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I love doing it, so it's a labor of love. Sometimes it does get to be a bit of a job, but I'm going to be retiring in a couple of years, and then I'll have a lot more time to devote to this. But I do love it.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Wow, it's been a while since we've talked. Do you remember when it was that we did that episode?
I do. It was a couple months into COVID, the summer after COVID started. So it was a little over 2 years ago. And
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was longer than that, but 2 years ago. Okay.
Well, it may be 2.5, maybe two and a half.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, still, and gosh, it seems like, everything, like the whole world changed after COVID in March of 2020. And it's like, that's like a marker in time. And it doesn't seem like that was that long ago, but yeah, a couple of years now, Yeah. So interesting.
So what you've been up to? It did change everything. It really did in a lot of ways. So I'm doing well. I'm can't quite believe I'm approaching my 10-year mark of recovery, and
great.
It doesn't seem possible, but it is. I'm close to that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was on last, I had taken some recovery coach courses during COVID, and yeah, I had taken a couple different courses and an ethics training course, and
where'd you take those from?
With the I took one here. I believe it's a Connecticut-based course.
Yeah, that's like one of the finest ones I know of. CCCCR, something like that.
Oh yeah, I can't believe you know of it. Yes,
yeah,
Recovery Coach Capital.
Yep. I was going to take some of those courses. I was actually signed up to take them, and then they had to cancel them for whatever reason. So I'll do that later on. But I'm sorry for interrupting you. So you took those courses?
No, it's okay. So I took the CCAR course. Yep. And while we were doing that, they added in it was called the McShin Foundation course. So I took that one, and then an ethics training. So I had a little, it was helpful to me, to my recovery. I really started learning great tools, and since I got sober, John, I went to a rehab here in Connecticut. And it was 12-step based, but they offered other things. And that got me started realizing how many different avenues we could follow in our recovery, and they introduced me to, like, I was always a hiker and I always loved nature. I never realized that I could tie that into my recovery. And I learned that at rehab. They got me started in that, and yoga, meditation. And I still to this day do all those things, along with AA and the support group meetings. And so anyways, I took those courses with an interest in someday working in some capacity in the recovery world. I couldn't afford it at that time. I was still working full time. Recovery jobs don't typically pay much. It's got to come more from your heart. But I've since retired, from my career job, and so I started working for a company based here in Connecticut. We're now multi-state, and it's an in-home addiction. And our motto is, meet the client where they're at, and multiple pathways, whatever works. And,
that is totally what it's about. I embrace that. And that is what a recovery coach or a peer support specialist would encourage anyone to do, is to find the path that works for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. One other thing I did want to mention also, and I know you've done it as well, last winter, I also took the SMART recovery training. I got certified,
very good.
Certified to be a SMART recovery facilitator. I have not even come close to running a meeting, but I love the tools
I
of
did
SMART.
the same. Yeah. I like the tools, and I learned a lot from that. I've gone to some SMART meetings, not a whole lot though. So do you attend very many of the meetings, or?
Not a lot, a few online now. Yeah. So I'd like to get more involved. I really do. Matter of fact, I just received an email this week, and you'll probably get it, about a refresher course for facilitators coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah. Something free of charge they're offering just as a refresher.
Cool.
So.
I'll do it.
So yeah, SMART, and having those courses under my belt really, just helped me,
sure.
to with the multiple pathways approach,
Right.
So
Right.
I have a little knowledge. I'm not an expert around anything, but I have a little knowledge. So
yeah.
So I started working for this
training.
company. Yeah. So I started working for this company. Recovery advisor is my title, and we're in home addiction, and meet the client where they're at, as I said. And so right now I'm a per diem guy. I work 20 hours a week, and, I've got 5 or 6 fellas that I work with, and, they're all following a different path. It's really great for my recovery. And I two people presently are involved with the Soberlink, are utilizing Soberlink. We offer that, and they're utilizing it. And one fella in particular is doing fabulous. He never misses a test. I don't know how he's doing it, because it's, as you mentioned, it's a breathalyzer, and it's for accountability, and especially in early recovery, and it's 3 times a day. I think they get a text message with a notification, you're due for a test, and they blow into this 3 times a day, and I get the results. They determine who gets the results, but in this case, I'm on the text message list, so I get the results. One fella, his wife gets the results, and it's given her peace of mind. He can't stop saying that, how, she just feels at ease, especially in his early recovery stages. I'm sure as time goes by, the trust will build, but,
sure.
In the early stages, it's been really helpful. Yeah, we've been utilizing it.
I can understand. So he is comfortable, and his wife is comfortable also, knowing that he's sober. Does he doesn't feel any discomfort that she just wouldn't take his word for it? Or is this just something that just helps solidify that, listen, there's no doubt this is what's going on, and maybe it's good for him. Maybe he likes to be able to share this. Is that the case?
I think you pretty much nailed it on what you said. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would feel that way. It's not for everyone,
Right.
like, oh, what do you mean you don't trust me?
Yeah.
Well, when we're in active addiction, we kind of tend to be not so honest,
Right. True.
So,
True.
So that trust has to be built up over time. Sometimes it takes a while. So
Yeah.
yes, this is not for everyone, but in these cases, it's reassuring. And I think you touched on it. The fella doing the test I think he might feel good. Hey,
I
look,
think so.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Look, I'm blowing zero or
I
whatever,
can see that.
however you
I could
describe it.
relate to that even. I could see if I was doing that early on and especially if I could share that with somebody. The person I'm sharing it with would be happy that I'm
Yeah,
sober. I'm checking in with them. I would be happy that they're happy, So it's I could see how that could build not just trust between you and the person that that needs you to be sober, but also helps build your own confidence, and your own focus, helps you focus on what you're wanting to do with your life. Very cool.
definitely. I mean, once a year, in an AA meeting, I raise my hand and go up and get a coin.
Right. That's the show. What you've done.
Recognizing my sobriety, and I like those coins. I hang them
Yeah.
from the rearview mirror of my car. I'm proud of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of along that lines, I guess, a little
Sure.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So yeah, so I do have two fellows actively using Soberlink. Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah,
And so
helpful
and then
tool.
and then they also are they so everyone will find their own path. So how do you approach that if you have a client who comes to you now and they are new to sobriety? How do you help them find their path?
Well, yeah, John, if someone asked me what I got out of taking recovery coach courses that I did, I would have to say a lot of it I forgot. You forget, you can't remember, especially if you're not using it, right?
Exactly.
But if they said, "Could you tell me the most important thing you learned?" and my answer would be active listening. They
Yeah.
taught me about active listening, and I'm
Okay.
learning. I learn every day that when a person is in early recovery, they just want someone to listen. They
Right.
want someone to truly listen. And I make a lot of use of motivational interviewing.
Okay.
With the acronym OARS, right? Open-ended
Right.
questions, not yes or no. We want open-ended questions and reflective listening. Make sure the person knows that you're truly listening. You're not letting
Right.
it go in and out. You're absorbing what they're saying, and that's how you could kind of pick up on what direction an individual may
Right.
want to go. And it doesn't always work. You don't always have the right answer, but by doing that, you could kind of get a little clue to where I've got one fellow loves AA, right? Two
Uh-huh.
sponsors, loves AA guy.
Uh-huh.
Awesome.
Uh-huh.
I've got a fellow who wants nothing to do with a support group. God
Oh.
is running the show for this fella. God's running the show, Mark.
Oh, God only. He
Yeah.
needs no other people. Okay.
No, yep. I put it behind me, and hey, listen, if that works for you, that's great.
Okay.
So I've, a fella taking antabuse, which if you're not familiar with it, it's a
Yeah.
daily medication. And if you absorb alcohol in any way, you become very sick, and for him
Right.
that works. I mean,
Yeah.
so I all these different approaches, we're using smart recovery, definitely using smart and certainly, as I mentioned, AA, of course. And, the nature, I stress at least for me, the importance of, a connection with nature, hiking. I'm a gym guy, taking care of yourself physically, the list goes on and on. And, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I was diagnosed in 1975. I've been dealing with diabetes for like 47 years, right? And when I think of the technology that I've witnessed from the time I was diagnosed at 15 years old to now, it's just
Mm,
incredible. Incredible.
I
And
bet.
imagine, if I went to my endocrinologist and said, look, I just want you to treat me the way you did in 1975, or if the endocrinologist said that to me, hey, Mark, listen, I'm a dogmatic kind of doctor, and we're going to do it the way we did in 1975. I don't think so. Maybe we could make use of what was used back then, but
Right.
let's include all the things we've learned since then. And
Right.
that's kind of how I approach my recovery.
Yeah. I do too. I had a similar experience. So I took I got certified here in Missouri as a peer support specialist, and I talk about that a lot on the podcast. I'm kind of proud of it. It was a really intense course that I took. It was really well done. I learned a lot, And I get to follow it up with weekly meetings. They're echoes, and you might have them in Connecticut. They have them all over the country, but it's basically a telemed type thing where I get together with other peer support specialists in the state of Missouri. They're all working in the field, whereas I'm not. And what they'll do is they'll talk about some new resource that's out there, or update on what's going on in the recovery world here in Missouri. And then there'll be a case study where someone will bring up a situation with a client that they're working with or something, and then they'll get feedback from the other people in the group about, how they might approach whatever the problem is with that particular client. And I just learned so much, from just the coursework and doing that. But like you say, I'm not using it. I don't know if I will until maybe I retire. I might want to do some volunteer work or something, someplace like a treatment center or a halfway house or something like that. But but there's like a few key concepts, I guess, that sunk in with me and have helped me. And one of those is, well, there's a few, but the first one is understanding what recovery is. And using the SAMHSA definition of recovery, which is basically a process of change, where we improve and try to become the best self, that we can be. It's just understanding that. And then what I think what I would have loved to have focused on when I was first getting sober is asking is for someone to think about anyway, consider, what do you want your sober life to look like? What do you want besides just not drinking or using? What do you want from your life? And maybe we can talk about some goals to set. I think that's really important, because if all I did, in my early days, Mark, and maybe it was okay, but I just focused on not drinking and staying out of jail. And that was good, because I by not drinking and staying out of jail, I could get a job, I could have a home, I could make friends, so I was having a good life out of that. But I think that it helps to have some underlying purpose for being sober beyond just not going to jail and staying out of trouble.
I love that, John. I love what you just said. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I got from that. And I've carried that with me as I do these episodes, and as I think about my own recovery or talk to people, in one-on-one meetings I have, I always kind of think about that. And then, of course, that meeting people where they are, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
And not trying to bring them where you are. And that's where, that's where I guess, do you ever have clients? Have you ever had anybody that has gone to a 12-step meeting or something, and they didn't feel like their view was being respected, and that people were trying to pull them in a particular direction? I mean, I know I've experienced that myself.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Well, it happens, and, I just, nothing is for everyone,
No.
and I do tell people, though, hey, listen, I make use of AA. I love AA, but it's not my only tool by any means.
Right.
And you do have to give it a fair chance. You need to go to 12 meetings. And you can't go to the same location. Every meeting has a different personality.
That's the thing. I always tell people that too, is don't judge all of AA based upon one group and one meeting. You have to really go to maybe different groups, and different meetings within a group can be different because different people are there. The meeting really depends upon the people in that particular group. And and groups have their own personalities and ways of doing things. So there's that.
They do.
But also, don't make it your only tool. Because if you have other things that you can add to your arsenal, it just strengthens your sobriety, it strengthens your recovery, but it gives you more confidence. If you go into a room where some dogmatic guy corners you, you've got all this got all this other stuff, and I think that you're more than likely to say, that fine, thank you very much, but not have to buy into it. I think that was my problem early on.
For some people,
have that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, for some people that works. Some people want and need that, but I was not one of them. Sit there, shut up. No, that doesn't work for me. But some people different place. Yeah, no, for some people it does, and that's great if it does. So that's why I stress, look, you got to give it a fair shot. Try a few different locations, and meetings seem to develop a personality. So if it's
True. And it'll
an open
change
minded,
too
yeah,
over
it'll change.
time.
But like say a meeting is very open minded and more on the liberal type of side.
Yeah.
Word gets around, and people who like that type of meeting are going to continue to go to that, and
Right.
so they find, as we've said, their own personality. And but you got to
Right.
give it a shot. You got to try several locations and things like
Yep.
that. And I
Yep.
even stayed connected to where I went to rehab here in Connecticut, and I'm speaking up there. It's in northwestern Connecticut, a really beautiful area. I'm speaking up there in a couple weeks, and we had a alumni event 2 weeks ago. So hey, listen, if it's not fun, I'm not going to stick with it. I have to make my recovery fun. There has to be an element of fun to it, enjoyment. I don't want to sit around and be miserable and, watch a football game and see everybody else drinking beer. I mean, every time I turn on a motion picture, within my wife and I we keep score. We watch a lot of movies, and we keep score how many minutes into the movie before someone's either drinking, talking about drinking, talking about rehab, talking about an AA meeting, something related to recovery or addiction. And it's amazing. We just live in a society that's just so focused on alcohol. It's just the way it is. I can't change that, but I could work
It's
around
true.
it.
I was just talking to, and I posted this episode just this last Wednesday. Her name is Amy, and her last name, I'll think of it in a little bit, but she's a recovery coach.
Willis.
Willis.
Amy Willis.
Did
she
you
was
hear that?
she was fantastic. I loved it. She was fantastic. Yeah.
She was. And she talked about that normalization of alcohol use in our society. And she is adamant that, it's similar to what was going on with cigarettes. It's big alcohol. It's these companies that are making millions and millions of dollars convincing a society that alcohol is harmless and fun, and you just have to be responsible with how you use it. Yeah. And so there's that's what drives, I think, all the references to drinking that you see in movies and on television. It's the same thing used to happen with cigarettes. It used to be almost any movie you would watch, they'd light up a cigarette.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart or whatever. Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
Amy was great. I did listen to that. I loved it. And I loved her analogy with the smoking. And, when she touched on how the beer trucks on the back, it says drink responsibly.
Yeah.
Like that relieves them of all liability, right?
Exactly.
Now it's on you. Now it's on you,
Right.
the bad alcoholic.
Right.
It's true. She's right, I think.
She's right.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that episode. It was that she's like the first person I met that I think she is the first person I met that not just deals with helping people that are struggling and getting into recovery, but also just addressing the societal problem, that not putting all the blame on the person, but like the substance is the issue, is where she's coming from. It's the substance itself, not necessarily the person. And when we drink alcohol, which is an addictive substance, when we start drinking, we don't know that we have all this this trauma or whatever, and that we can become addicted to it. We're not thinking about that, and it takes over very quickly, and it can be dangerous.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. At least for me, alcohol was a very powerful drug, and it had. I wasn't addicted so much physically, a little bit, but psychologically, what a hold it had on me psychologically.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. I was. I definitely, drinking would have the compulsion to keep drinking. The next day, definitely hungover and sick, and I was a blackout drinker. But I didn't have like, some people, like, you have to drink or you start having DTs, or you have what is it?
A seizure. You can go into a seizure.
Yeah. I had a guy. Yeah. I took a guy to the emergency room who had a seizure because he stopped drinking. A lot
of people don't realize.
I didn't have to experience that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize the danger of alcohol withdrawal. When we think of withdrawal, we think of heroin, right? Everyone thinks heroin,
right?
And believe me, I'm sure heroin is a very uncomfortable withdrawal, but it's not life threatening. Alcohol withdrawal is life-threatening.
It will kill you. And,
yes,
and I'm sure that you have actually been with people. I have been with people going through withdrawal. I've been with people that have been tied down to their freaking bed because of the alcohol withdrawal, just to keep them in their bed.
I can't say that I've
and
witnessed that, but I've
I
certainly heard
have.
of it. Yeah.
Yep, and a couple times. So
Wow.
it's
Wow.
I've seen it up close. Unfortunately, I've seen one of the people I'm thinking about. He was my I guess he's my sister, my not my sister, my wife's brother-in-law, and he ended up dying. And looking back on that, this was a while ago, and I was really an AA guy at the time, and he had grown up in a very religious family, a dogmatically religious family, and he later rebelled from that. It was that was his trauma, was that religion, right? So I got him to a treatment center that was actually sponsored through the Salvation Army,
Oh,
you
wow.
know? And the Salvation Army, I've always had good experience with them. And I've gone to meetings there and stuff at these different treatment centers, and I thought it would be helpful. But he was immediately approached with all the God stuff just from the steps and all this other stuff. So he
Mm.
didn't stay in treatment. Ended up going home, and he died.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was
It's
just from.
unfortunate, that scares a lot of people away,
It does.
anyone, whether it's God stuff or something else, whatever, something that only one thing is offered, I think that
When
can be
only one thing
dangerous,
is offered. Yeah, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
strength of where you're
Because what
working
happens
now,
if it
is
doesn't
having those
work?
options. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, a lot of freedom. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I use, certainly it's important in recovery. We say, you have to get sober for yourself. I don't disagree with that, but something that's powerful for me is knowing that there's other people dependent on my recovery, and that's
yeah.
a powerful tool for me. Just a quick story. I remember I was maybe 5 years sober, and I have two sons, and they were already out of college at that point. My younger son was living nearby in a rent, and I didn't see him too much. His life was busy, so I'm in my office here, and he shows up one day unannounced, which was a little unusual. And I didn't hear him come in. All of a sudden, he's standing in the doorway, and I could tell he has something to say, And he sits down. He's kind of has his chin in his hands, and he says, "Hey, Dad, Sam, his girlfriend, who is now his fiance, Sam is moving out of her house, and she's getting an apartment, and she asked me to move in with her. And I was just wondering what you thought I should do." And, I know that that may sound very insignificant to a lot of people. But in reality, for me, it was one of the most important moments of my recovery. And I describe it as the moment the airplane flew over my house, pulling a large banner that read, "This is why you stay sober," And I think we can all use that tool. You don't have to, with me, it was my son that day, but you don't have to have children of your own. We all have someone, a spouse, a sibling, coworker, a boss. I was a drunk driver. I was a compulsive drunk
Yes,
driver.
the
So
same.
I have a responsibility to anyone who drives on the road in Connecticut when I'm driving. I have a responsibility to them not to take that first drink. So
Yeah,
I think we could find strength in that, knowing that, it's gotten me out of some dark places. And when I think, hey, listen, this isn't all about me.
I think so. I think so too. It's a good reminder, and I think it's a confidence builder. I think it's like, I'm doing this for a reason. It's not just I'm not just doing this for any. I'm
Purpose.
doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just staying out of jail
We
for
have
me.
purpose.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
hurting
hey, listen,
anybody.
John Sheldon could say, a lot of people are dependent on this podcast. I listen to this podcast all the time. So I hope you don't relapse, because I would lose this podcast,
Yeah,
so
that's another purpose to, and I've talked to other recovery podcasters who told me that one of the things they like about doing a podcast about recovery is it keeps them accountable, because it's like, what if they if you just start drinking again, I guess the podcast is over, isn't
I don't want to make a joke of it, but it'd be kind of funny if you picked up a bottle of Jim Beam while you were doing the
Yeah, it's
podcast.
like, oh Lord.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, yeah.
So today, we're going to be doing a live stream. I hope that you can make it.
Awesome.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
about dropping the
yeah.
mask and being your authentic self. And what's funny about these live streams, what's funny, I guess, not, I don't know if it's funny, but interesting that as I'm often unprepared. And so what I've done with this one is I pulled up some articles about it just to kind of give me an idea of what this is even about. And as I was reading the articles, I realized, oh, there's a lot to this that maybe I do actually kind of contemplate in my daily life. And for me, the dropping the mask and being authentic is about how open do I want to be at large about my recovery, you know? I'm not that open really at work. There's like a few people, you know, that I'm close to at work that know, but overall I'm not. And it's kind of interesting. Some of the articles I was reading was about, you know, asking these questions. Well, why are you uncomfortable with that? And what do you think would happen if you took the risk, you know, and were more open about it? How do you think you would feel? And those are interesting questions to me. I mean, you know, on one hand, it's like I don't want to be known as just a person in recovery, as that's my identity. But on the other hand, it would be nice that I could just be my complete self wherever I go at work, you know? So it's
Yeah.
given me a lot to
Well,
think about.
yeah, it's certainly an individual choice, of course. You know, I got sober at 53 after 38 years of drinking, and I was and still am very open about my recovery.
Yeah.
But I have to say, if I was a 22-year-old college graduate applying for
Yeah.
my first job as a second grade school teacher, I
Right.
might think differently. You know, I might look at it a little
Exactly.
differently. So, yeah,
Exactly.
it's a case by case situation. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of
yeah.
me early on. I mean, I wasn't going to be in like any sort of a profession that I needed the public trust or anything, but yeah, I was young and needing to get employment and you know, concerned
Mhm.
about that
Yeah,
and everything. So, anyway,
yeah.
but that's not me anymore. I'm old now and
You're not as old
getting
as
near
me.
retirement.
Yeah, you're not quite as old as me, so don't worry about it.
It's funny how time seems to go by so fast, and I was laughing at myself. Um, I sometimes will reference someone I've talked to or and as being much younger than me or whatever. Well, hell, most people now are younger than me. Most people, you know, as you get
The
much
pool is
older than me, you're
growing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I just had that
yeah.
realization. Well, no wonder I'm talking to so many young people. Most people are you.
Pretty funny. Yeah,
It
the
is
amount of
funny.
people. Yeah, the seesaw is going the other way now. The people older than you are, are way up in the air.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it's nice having so many young people. Well, wait a second. Actually, the rest of the world is anyway. Kind of a funny.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you for coming on here and talking
Oh,
about this. I really appreciate that.
I,
I you
I
know I reached out to the Soberlink people right after that live stream and let them know I'm so excited. You know, I had a guy that talked about some clients of his that
absolutely.
use Soberlink,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there were some other people that made comments about using Soberlink, and it made me feel good because they're my sponsor for this podcast. And
Good.
I tell you, anytime I've ever heard anybody talk about Soberlink, it's always been totally positive. The people down there have been super great to me, and I like working with them. So it's just nice to know that you know the people who sponsor this podcast are doing something that's helpful for people in recovery. That it's a product that actually helps people, and it was great to get that feedback, and I'm going to get back. I'm going to circle back with them again and let them know about this conversation, have them listen to it, and maybe I'll explore in more detail. You know, other people that use it and stuff. This is kind of interesting to me. You know
Mhm.
that because it's new technology really that you can actually use this and then send the results someplace. Plus, it
Yeah.
has like you know facial recognition where you know there's no way that you can tamper with it really, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's really pretty high tech, you know. It's something that we didn't have, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, and that and people it helps people stay accountable. It helps them kind of keep track their own sobriety, you know. So yeah, pretty cool.
Do you
So
think
thank you
it?
for
I
that.
don't know. Maybe you would know. Is it a little bit of a takeoff from? I know people, with DUI issues, right? Yeah, when they get their license back, there's the thing on the car that you have to blow into to start the car. I don't know if it's kind of along that lines. I'm not sure if it is, but
Yeah,
um,
I don't know, but I had a guest on once before, and I'll have to ask Soberlink about this, but he told me that one occupation that would use it is truck drivers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, so
Equipment operators. Yep.
yeah, things like that. I could see even maybe pilots or using it, but I don't think that they have it tied into the vehicle that you need to use it to start the car. But I do know that those exist. So like people who get DUIs today, the courts might mandate that they have something like that, where to start your car you have to blow into
Yeah.
the breathalyzer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so thank you. I'm going to get ready for this live stream here, coming up here in about 30 minutes. It's a pleasure to catch up with you. Is there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with before we head out?
Not really, John. Just I really enjoy being here, and I'd love to do it anytime. I really appreciate you having me on.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. We will have you on again. I know that.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
That'd be great.